Welcome to another episode of TRVC, the Turkish VC podcast. Our guest today is Didem Altop, a general partner of Treeo VC. Great to have you, Didem.
It's wonderful to be here.
You're in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, is it?
Exactly. I'm in Fort Lauderdale right now.
I'm here in Ayvalık, Summer House area, and today I'm in this wonderful studio, Pure Junda, which is a professional music recording studio that was built here. You know, you have Miami and the South Miami beaches, but I'm here in this really cool studio. One of these synthesizers here is the original Mini Moog. For anybody who's kind of nerdy about electronics, Mini Moog is one of the earliest synthesizers from the 70s. And this particular one is the one that recorded the soundtrack of Hababam Sınıfı, all the Hababam Sınıfı movies. Anyway, I like to mention a little bit because, you know, we're talking about the Turkish VC ecosystem and how it's a growing ecosystem and these kind of infrastructures. We talk sometimes about all the techno parks that have opened where, you know, the Turkish startups can have offices, which is kind of sometimes debatable. You know, is that really useful? Is it better to put that money in investing in a startup rather than in real estate? But, you know, infrastructure is also important. And this is an amazing infrastructure. And it's kind of cool to see. The last episode I did from Ayvalık, I did it at a co-working space, which brand new that didn't used to exist, that was created in Ayvalık. And now here's this amazing professional music studio that also exists in Ayvalık. Anyway, much too long of a parenthesis.
Actually, the studio in Ayvalık is quite a gem. That's a gorgeous find because the environment is so conducive to creativity as well. Beautiful.
Next time you need to come to Ayvalık. I'll show you around and we can do it in person at the studio here.
Perfect.
It's great to have you because this is actually the second time I'll be talking about Treeo VC. We had an episode, one of our early episodes with Mine, who is a venture partner with you. So it's great to have you, one of the three general partners of Treeo VC. Let's kind of set up Treeo VC, or do you want to set up Treeo VC in your own words?
Perfect. So Treeo VC was really designed to cover this gap between global founders, global investors, and the United States VC and startup ecosystem and that marketplace. So we're a fund, an early stage fund investing in AI-native B2B and a little bit of deep tech companies led by global founders in the United States. So a majority of our investment portfolio companies do have at least one Turkish co-founder. Not all of them, but a majority of them do.
And so your three general partners, you, Didem Altop, Çiğdem Toraman, and Arzu Tekir. And fund size, is that something you can share?
We're just under $10 million fund. We're in our third year of investing. We're wrapping up our third year of investing, actually. And we have another year to go of deployment. Our goal is 30 to 32 companies. We're at 23 right now.
Okay. $10 million fund, 3 years in, one more year of investment. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into entrepreneurship world, VC?
I really think that, you know, my personal career was shaped by so many different inflection points. And a lot of that had to do with digital divide at various times. Digital transformation, not the digital divide. The digital transformation that came with the first wave of computers, then the first wave of internet, then the first wave of mobility, you know, all these different inflection points in digital transformation. And of course, now this next wave of digital transformation is evolutionary, it's revolutionary, right? With the AI transformation wave. And maybe I got stuck on the digital divide was because I was always trying to kind of figure out in my career too, where were the areas of friction and where were the gaps where digital divide was a source of concern and what could we mobilize around it to build communities of trust that could address those gaps. So that's what we did. And that's where the philanthropy and the business skills kind of overlap because I've always been involved on the business side, whether it's management consulting, startup entrepreneurship, investing. But then the mechanisms and the vehicles for creating those ecosystems were often nonprofits or business associations, etc.
And so one of the nonprofits you were at was Endeavor. In fact, were you involved in actually creating the Endeavor Turkey office?
Yeah, I was the co-founder. It was myself and my brother. And then I ended up becoming the managing director for over 12 years, which was wonderful because Turkey was the first regional office of Endeavor outside of Latin America. Endeavor actually started as an experiment in Latin America. And then when the former World Bank president, James Wolfenson, joined the Endeavor Global Board, he gave the team a challenge and said, let's test this outside in a different culture. He said, you guys should start with Turkey. And it was really interesting too, because that was the same time when James Wolfenson had also joined the board of Citigroup. And Citigroup had just acquired a stake in Akbank. So there was this connection to Turkey as well, and this visibility of Turkey as well. So really, like, the stars aligned, and we got the momentum and the interest from the Turkish ecosystem leaders, business leaders, essentially.
Yeah.
To wear their hats and look at this entrepreneurship ecosystem space as a place to invest their time, energy, capacity in.
We did another TRVC episode with Aslı Kurul Türkmen, who's the current head of the Endeavor Turkey office. But it's great to hear a little bit of that history from you, kind of the very beginnings of it. Mm-hmm. How did you get connected up with Endeavor? They hadn't gone outside of Latin America yet. And what was your interest?
So I was involved with entrepreneurship in grad school. Back in the United States, which is where I was born and raised, entrepreneurship was always, for me, a tool for economic development. So undergrad, I studied international relations and economic development at Hopkins. And then I went back to grad school after working at the World Bank for a few years to get my MBA. And then when I bridged those two concepts together, economic development and business, entrepreneurship to me is the best economic development tool you can think of. It's the one that's creating the most new net jobs, the most high value jobs, innovation and new services for the world. You really can't get better than entrepreneurship as an economic development tool. So I had a passion for that. And then my classmates, actually one of my classmates from Carnegie Mellon was one of the first board members of Endeavor Global. And he had introduced me to Endeavor many, many years ago. And he had also introduced my brother to Endeavor many years ago. One thing led to another. And when they were ready to enter, like expand outside of Latin America, they said, hey, I have a Turkish friend who understands entrepreneurship. Let's call her. And then we had a chance to connect.
I'm a strong believer of that as well. I think there are a lot of people who get that, but I think also it's somewhat rare, right? I think there should be more people who see this intersection. People who come at it from a development angle, sometimes they're not so enthralled with the idea of business, right? Because they think of business as, large corporations who maybe extract resources or whatever. And then, I did an MBA as well. Not everybody in business school or who goes into business is necessarily motivated by economic development. So it takes bridging those two sides to realize that there's actually an amazing intersection between the two there, and it's entrepreneurship.
I mean, if you just look at it from, let's just look at Peak Games, for example, in Turkey. Peak Games probably gave birth, not only did it have one of the most successful exits in the country and the most successful journeys in the country as a startup company, but it probably gave birth to another 800 companies or so, maybe. And the next wave of massive exits and growth in an economy, right? So it's creating jobs. It's creating jobs in the creative industry. It really put Turkey on the map. It created a whole new segment. And then, So that's one example of the compounding effect of entrepreneurship. But then if we look at the most successful other entrepreneurs, they are literally the leading angel investors and venture capital investors in the country, right? So they also spun out of there. So you have the Nevzat Aydın's of the world and the Fırat and Fatih İşbecers, and then you have Erden Yurdanur and Sina Afra, all these people reinvesting into the economy, and not only with their capital, but also with their mentorship. So there's a compounding effect there as well. So when entrepreneurs become successful, they make the exit, they reinvest where they live. There's also that virtuous cycle that starts to happen in addition to the jobs that they're creating. That's the motor of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think there's actually a third aspect too. I totally agree with those two. A third aspect is maybe also that, for any business to be successful, it's solving some sort of a problem or meeting a need. And I guess you could...
Very key points, yeah.
I mean, I guess you could debate, some startups are maybe provide more societal benefit than others, but and we'll talk about that, maybe different verticals or sectors. But generally, I mean, if somebody's using it, I mean, you gave the example of Nevzat Aydın, I mean, Yemek Sepeti, I mean, what a great service that is for so many, people, thousands and thousands of people who are able to order food and get it to their house. And
think about the externalities, right? Not only is it food delivery services, but think about all the side industries that it stimulated, whether it's packaging, whether it's transportation, whether it's call services, you name it, menu design, ghost kitchens, right? It created a whole chain reaction of industries that it catalyzed or nurtured somehow.
Yeah. Maybe that's actually kind of a fourth point. I mean, I do see when you look at startups or, startups, that whole ecosystem tends to play much more as an ecosystem. You think of the traditional kind of large corporations. Turkey had a long period where the big part of the economy was these kind of large holding companies. I mean, they tend to keep everything in-house, right? Sort of do everything themselves. And actually a lot of startups, the startup ecosystem, entrepreneurship, you tend to have, one startup, but to be able to, grow, then they bring all, it creates opportunities for all these other startups to service them and work together and create this whole ecosystem. So that's maybe another kind of part of the whole ecosystem, part of the entrepreneurship flywheel.
I mean, I suppose whole holding companies were designed to be self-sufficient, right? So self-sufficiency, and they had to, out of necessity, kind of design and develop services that they needed that they couldn't find in an economy that they were operating in. So that's kind of like the logic of a holding company. But over time, if you're not going to be the number one most dedicated XYZ in a particular activity, then should you be the one doing it? Can't you just outsource it? And then that gets to, we talk about corporate social responsibility in terms of doing business in an ethical way, but I actually believe that we have corporate entrepreneurship responsibility. I think all companies also responsible for nurturing the next generation of startups and businesses. They should aim to be the first pilot customer of a startup. They should be looking to open pathways. And now, for example, with artificial intelligence and where the world is going, all of that creation, the technical expertise and savvy needs to come together with domain expertise and specific needs to really create value. So if businesses aren't sharing their insights and workflows and data, the AI that we're designing isn't really going to do much. They need to come together more than ever.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it. And I think that makes a huge difference. I mean, we talk about that in a lot of other episodes. We talked about it a lot, that how the U.S. market, and you're also investing in startups more in the U.S. market than
only in the U.S. market,
than in Turkey. That one of the advantages with that is that there is that kind of a culture and business culture of large even large corporations who are very happy and very interested, in fact, in being the first customer of a startup, being an early adopter, trying the new technology, not necessarily saying, well, we'll build it ourselves. And that makes it a vibrant, that much more of a vibrant ecosystem. And maybe there's something to be learned from that.
We're seeing
in other ecosystems as well.
We're seeing, for example, a lot of the major accelerator programs, incubators, they're totally leveraging their own ecosystem of corporations or potential first customers as the value proposition of their program and platform. Like Y Combinator isn't just teaching entrepreneurs over 3 months how to build a pitch deck, right? They're actually connecting them to potential sources of insight, which is their customer ecosystem. We're also seeing those first customers sometimes be design partners, sometimes be first paid pilot customers, and sometimes even become the first ticket writers and investors as well. So you see that churn, that activity of collaboration across those ecosystems. And I would love to make a call out for the Turkish ecosystem and the incubators and accelerators there to really create more of that opportunity for corporations, especially also not just the big ones, but the small, medium-sized and KOBİ'ler, the SMEs should also get in on the action, which is another interesting topic because this wave of innovation is so powerful. It's kind of like rain. In order for the rain to be useful, it needs to be able to be absorbed by the soil, right? If it rains too much, the soil can't absorb it. And that's kind of what the effect that we're seeing right now. There needs to be some type of optimization of how innovation is created, but then how it's also consumed, absorbed, the use cases, etc. So we're trying to see that optimization emerge.
That's a really good point, that small, medium enterprises also have a role to play there and can totally participate. And it's super important for Turkey because a large part of the economy is actually small, medium enterprises. And it takes some things to all line up for that actually to be, it's easier said than done, but
sure.
That's a really good point.
But it's a real fantastic opportunity for them to leapfrog right now. Just imagine in the olden days, a few years ago, the big holding companies had their technology departments and their technology units and tech savvy staff across, their organizations. And the small, medium business enterprises maybe didn't have the money for consultancy, didn't have the money for technical expertise or investments. But now our AI has made it so accessible. It's probably 1/10 the price of what everything else was before. They don't need the technical expertise as they need the technical curiosity more than the expertise. So they can truly leapfrog what they hadn't invested in the past decade or two.
Yeah, I mean, just a concrete example of that happening in Silicon Valley. I was in, back in April, I went to what did they call it? The Turkish Tech Summit at the Turkish Student Association at Stanford. But went together, and I was met with a Turkish entrepreneur there in the Bay Area, and he was talking about AI solution that he had gotten interest from just a local real estate agency who had just started using it, or cobbled some things together, was using AI, and then needed some help and was reaching out to buy his solution. And that's the kind of energy that's amazing, right? It's not waiting for some large company to do something, but just somebody finding a solution and starting to use it,
exactly,
and getting benefit from it. So on the path to creating a Treeo VC, I know you and your co-founders, you went through the VC Lab program. I know because I also went through it, and I remember talking to you about your experience in that. Really it's great to hear your motivations there about entrepreneurship as kind of a force for good, because it's kind of part of the ethos of the whole VC Lab setup too, right? Do you want to share a little bit what VC Lab is? And
so the founders of the Founders Institute, which is a support mechanism and community around the world for founders, for startup founders, also wanted to address the flip side, which was the venture capital formation and venture capital communities, strength and ethos. So they created the VC Lab program, which is for first-time fund managers, essentially. And a first-time fund manager at the broadest level is somebody who's managing a fund for the first time. But it also implies general partners who have come together to work together for the first time, because it also aligns the partners. And it's a 3-month program. It's a boot camp. It's an accelerator, just like the accelerators we have for startups. But it's also quite a mirror that shows whether you're ready, you have the appetite, and you have the will to move forward in launching a fund, because it is a set of skills and a set of muscles that you need to develop, and you need to enjoy doing it, right? So it walks you through. By the end of the third month, you have a decision about go or no go. Are you launching this fund? We, Didem, Arzu, and I, we were colleagues from the entrepreneurship ecosystem for many years. We've known each other. We've collaborated sporadically on different programs. When we all coincidentally ran into each other in South Florida right after COVID, one thing led to another. First, it was a social event. We got together, we reminisced. The second one was, I wonder if we should collaborate and do something together. By the third event, the third meetup, we had decided that really launching this fund dedicated to supporting Turkish founders in the United States and leveraging the U.S. ecosystem, which I'd like to get back to, was a unique opportunity that we were specifically well poised to kind of create this bridge. And then VC Lab not only aligned us as partners, but also gave us systems. And then, the top ranking cohort funds are invited to become part of something called Decile Partners. And Decile Partner is a venture capital as a service model. So they created all of our back office, all of our technology, and we're one of, I think, 180, maybe up to 200 already, but there are 200 other VCs like ours. We call ourselves micro VCs. Any fund under 20 million is considered a small fund, but we're all part of this community. So we also do deal sharing with each other. We collaborate with each other. We mentor each other where appropriate. There's lots of different types of subject matter.
The YC community. This is kind of, VC as an accelerator for VC funds.
Such an elegant model.
As a community like that as well.
And actually, just as a shout out to anybody, those cohorts, first of all, the program is free. It is competitive. Like, you need to be really dedicated and disciplined. Maybe you can mention your experience, but it's on a rolling schedule. So I think about 4 times a year, they have new cohorts. So if anybody's interested in a career in venture capital, they should really consider this program together with their partners.
And they've branched out as well. There's another program they've done called the LP Institute.
Yes.
Which kind of helps people learn about the whole world of VC funds and how to select them and meet managers and choose which one you want to invest in, how much, I haven't been through the LP Institute program, but basically that whole, and you're with a cohort with other potential LPs. So LPs being people who are interested in investing in venture capital funds. So I think that's a really cool other program. And then I think there's VC Institute, I think they call it, for not for people who are looking to start up a fund, but for looking to, become maybe an analyst at a fund or
for careers, sure.
Get a fund or start a career. And so, and I think they're all free programs. And, I think that obviously has a part to it as well. When it's free, it's kind of, it's online, it's whatever. But at the same time, I love the ethos of like, you have to apply and you have to be dedicated, but, everybody's welcome to apply and to kind of work to be part of it, which I think is a nice kind of approach. It's pretty, I think he does have, Deo Resi, who's a critic, has the idea of some people don't like that term, but, democratizing the idea of VC, having it break out from this image that it's only some elite people in Silicon Valley, but more that it's something that can also be applied throughout the world. So cool. Let's get back to, so you were really interested in supporting Turkish founders in the US, which broadened to kind of immigrant founders in the US. And so you're 3 years in, you said you're looking to make about 30 investments and you've made 20 or so.
We've made 23. We've made 23. Our goal is 30, maybe 32. So we have probably another 8 to 10 investments to make by December of 2027. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting year.
And kind of jumping the gun on a question, but are you looking to raise a second fund sometime soon? Because you'll be done with the investment phase of this one, but is that something you're thinking about yet?
Yeah, I don't know if people are aware of this, but like in order to be able to launch a second fund, you have to have deployed 70% of your capital of your first one, so that there's just kind of conflict of interest, dedication, etc. So yeah, it's something under consideration. We're very happy with how our fund one is going. So it's under consideration. We haven't made the formal announcement or decisions yet, but let's just say hopefully.
So 20 investments. Are there any of those you'd want to talk about?
So first, can I just preface this? Like, why the United States and why Turkish founders? So Turkish founders, there's a natural correlation. Me, Didem, Arzu, we all come from the Turkish entrepreneurship ecosystem space. But why the United States? It's not about America. It's about America as a global stage, right? So it's like a launch pad. And if you think about where the capital is flowing, first of all the venture capital, more than 80% of it is going to AI right now. And more than 70% of that capital is coming from the United States. So if you're an entrepreneur in a startup and you're not tapping into that capital early, you're really missing a boat. And if you're an investor, such as the Turkish LPs that we have, and you're not part of that game, you don't have a front row seat to where innovation is going and how we're shaping it, right? When we say we're investing in global founders in the United States, it doesn't mean that we're not promoting brain drain. Almost 80% of the companies that we've invested in have talent, research and development talent, product development talent in their home countries. It's the business development, the access to capital, the access to customers that is originating actually in the United States. And that's what we're tapping into and leveraging. So it's really fascinating. So for example, like if you're selling a solution to, let's say, banks in Turkey, maybe you have 20 banks. They're all amazing, beautiful, robust banks. I'm so proud of our banking system in Turkey, but there's 20 of them. In the United States, you have 4,200 distinct banks. In Southeast America alone, you have 400 distinct banks. So like the pool of potential customers is so significant that enables the companies to be laser focused on a specific ideal customer profile. That enables them to gain traction quickly, to grow their reputation robustly, to deepen their insight, knowledge, stickiness, competitive moats. It really creates a different training ground. Like if you look at startup founders as elite athletes, it gives them a different training ground and training tools to build different muscles to make them competitive. So that's what we're trying to tap into. When we first started, of course, when we said global founders, meaning especially Turkish founders, so we say Turkish and other immigrant founders, we really were sector agnostic in the beginning. We delineated between B2B, AI-native, and deep tech, but it was specific from that point of view, but not from a sector vertical point of view. We were looking at tools We were looking at the different layers. So let's talk about that too. So we knew this AI shift was happening. We were looking across 5 different layers. So the first layer is AI research and development, right? So it's the LLMs, the tool, what goes inside the ethical barriers, the guardrails, etc. Then we were looking at infrastructures. We started to see how compute was happening, data centers, efficiency, batteries, distributed data centers. Then we started looking at, of course, the tools, whether they're end user tools or developer tools, they're distinct tools. And then, of course, there were workflows, and those workflows have also evolved into new business models. Remember, we used to talk about software as a service. Now it's called service as a software, like they flipped it. So this AI-enabled company can deliver an outcome to you as a customer. And then, of course, the 5th one is the frontier or the deep tech, right? All of this capabilities are going to lead to new businesses, new services, new models, new materials that we've never seen before. So we said, okay, we don't know what's going to pop up in front of us, especially when we're focusing specifically on Turkish founders. So we said, let's be sector agnostic, let's be opportunistic and see what's happening. But we can really see like health, life sciences, material sciences, biotech, this new service models, service as a software business models for efficiency. We can see a lot of those. And then, of course, like the infrastructure side, the most recent investment we made was cybersecurity.
Kind of great, I guess, angle to look at it. Do you have any examples of portfolio companies that match some of those layers that you could share?
Sure. So one of our earliest investments was in Tamarind Bio. That it's a drug discovery platform that kind of spun out of Stanford University. They're doing amazing things. So they started with Stanford University, 2 students at Stanford University, actually, one Turkish, one from China, both scholarship students. While they were, in their freshman, sophomore years, I think they started working with the biology department to develop a database solution set, which turned into this beautiful drug discovery platform that then the Stanford biology professors also gave them access to their cohorts across the United States. So biology professors around the United States started using them as beta testers. One thing led to another that got the attention of the National Institute of Health. They became one of the first inbound corporate clients, the contract research offices, etc. Most recently, I think it was, I don't want to name it, but one of them, I don't want to say the wrong pharmaceutical company's name, but one pharmaceutical company gave them like a $1 billion portfolio of data to use for the platform, to be managed by this platform. So that's in like 2 short years, they've really transformed this whole entire landscape. It's going really, really well. So that's life sciences. We have other life sciences companies too, like Hexon Bio on longevity. We invested in gel tech on automating gel-based material discovery, which is really cool. And they're doing lab as a service, for example. So they're not selling the robotic automation tools, developers. They're actually the outsourced partner for the developers. So they have this automated lab, which does the delivery work. What's that company called again? Gel tech.
Gel tech. Mm-hmm.
Gel tech.
Wow.
So they're doing terrific. We have amazing efficiency, workplace, productivity, efficiency companies. We started getting into more like sector-based activities, like a patient desk is doing dental clinics in a box, right? So they're delivering the service to, and this is where the small and medium-sized enterprise come in to really just help those dental clinics catch up to the era. Leapfrog technology, low cost, beautiful solutions. And our most recent investment, we have 2 of them. One was a company called, I'm going to remember the name.
You talked about workplace efficiency. In fact, one of the companies, I think, was it an exit for you already? Was it Blue Dot?
Blue Dot. So Blue Dot was actually a fintech solution for fleet management for EV. It's not an exact exit. It was acquired by another startup.
Okay.
And now that startup is part of our portfolio. So it's a type of an exit, but not a full exit yet. So that's going really well. We're excited to see where that's going to evolve because they joined forces. They had different capabilities, the 2 startups, and they merged those capabilities to become an even stronger company. So that's going to be really interesting. We, supply chain specifically for the food industry. Like it's becoming more and more, the ideal customer profile is becoming more and more discrete, clear, distinct. Like we can see a lot of different focus areas. And the most recent investment we just made is in cybersecurity for AI agents. Actually, it's a cyber AI agentic agents cybersecurity. So it's it's the policies and the permissions for what your agents are allowed to do. It's a cybersecurity control layer that sits on that, which we're really excited about as well.
That's a particular interest of mine, cybersecurity. I mean, I think it's becoming more and more important as technology continues to become, more and more important in our lives, and AI in particular. The sort of security aspect of it becomes more and more important.
And what we're seeing, Eunice, too, is like of all the investments that we've made, I'm going to go on a limb and say 95% of our founders or our co-founders have lived the problem that they're trying to solve, come from the industry that they're trying to serve. It's a different level of activity and insight that's come together to create these solutions. So that's what's really exciting. So
it sounds like that's kind of, if you had to say what are some of the things you're looking for when you're evaluating an investment, that kind of prior experience, having lived the problem, you'd probably mention that as something important for you. Absolutely. Being closer to the problem than most. Absolutely. Also, the co-founders kind of history with each other is something that we pay attention to. This is of course, there's going to be the solo founder unicorn at some point, right? But we do believe that the startup career path is a very heavy lift. We think of it as much more of a team sport, and we like for us, it's a prerequisite to invest in co-founders rather than solo founders. So I love, thanks for sharing that. I love the kind of, I kind of got a glimpse of your approach there, looking at kind of the, AI is coming, but let's look at 5 different layers of how it's going to play out, and then look at companies in each of those areas. You said 32 investments on a 10 million fund. So what's your average at the top of my head here, but so what's your average ticket size? So average ends up being 200, but our range is from 100 to 300K. Does that make it fairly early stage investments, or it can be kind of later and you're part of a bigger round? We're doing pre-seed and seed, but we also took one of our tickets, so one of our 300K tickets, we set it aside and we created a program called Signal, and we divided that up to 10 times. So we're doing almost like angel level tickets. For the earliest stage founders, we can do tickets up, it could go beyond 30, but the average ticket size we thought of was 30, like 30 to 50. So we're doing super early stage investments for like a teeny portion to be able to give them some momentum, especially as they're exploring. If they're coming from abroad to the United States, it gives them some bandwidth to explore. And is there something, a kind of an insight or a view that you hold that you'd want to share on kind of, how you see the Turkish ecosystem or Turkish founders, or where is it at? Where is it going? What's your kind of take? I mean, I think the Turkish ecosystem, we've been nurturing it for some time now. Almost, I'll say, Endeavor started in 2006. Before Endeavor, there were no technoparks, no incubators, no nothing, right? The only 2 organizations that were dedicated to entrepreneurship was Kagidar for women's entrepreneurship, and then you had Genç Başarı Eğitim Vakfı for high school kids. So those are like the 2 distinctive non-governmental initiatives supporting entrepreneurship. And then you probably had like Maya Vakfı, which was dealing with like home enterprise, like cottage industry. But there was no concerted effort to really create a robust, like the TÜSİAD version of entrepreneurship support organization until 2006. So from 2006 until now, Endeavor catalyzed a bunch of movements. The universities started building incubators. The technoparks came. They started creating networks. People spun out of Endeavor and started like Revo Capital was our original chairman. As Yantay and Jola helped launch, like Revo Capital is one of the first major local VCs. And then, of course, we had, 212, which is the gold standard. We admire them so much. And then you had like the Hummingbirds and the Early Birds and all these different groups. But VC came, angel investment networks came. Like I guess, again, through Endeavor, I think we've
We trained over 2,000 people on the art of angel investing over time. And then these angel networks started evolving. Anyway, so all these things are happening. And I would say we're probably at the adolescence stage of maturity, right? Because we're really good at angel. We're pretty good at pre-seed. But when we get to Series A stage, we get stuck. We don't have necessarily the gunpowder for it, right? The powder for it. In the past, we were able to attract foreign investors, but the political uncertainty of the world today, not just Turkey, but the world today, is making people a little bit more conservative about that. So if I had to say anything, I'm very proud of how the Turkish ecosystem has developed. Incentive programs by the government, by the way, actually applause worthy. Like, they have really good programs. I mean, you have to tap into them. There's a little bit of bureaucracy to get to know them, but once you understand how they work, there's a lot there of opportunities. But I think that the biggest mistake that we make is we probably wait too long. Like, we dally with our back market, our backyard in the Middle East. We go say, oh, this is our front yard. We go to Europe. But those two markets are considerably slower than the United States. I think we take too long to consider the U.S. as a priority. Maybe because of distance, maybe because of confidence. Maybe we think it's going to be too expensive, but there's a strategy to reverse engineer how to conquer the U.S. market. And I think we need to put it higher on the priority agenda than we do.
That's a great point. Do you see the kind of maybe the pathways for that happening, kind of opening? Because it takes kind of know-how, it takes connections, it takes some infrastructure for that. At least helps with that. We talked about how Peak Games spun off, or whatever, people who had worked at Peak Games went out and created other gaming companies. I mean, similarly, Turkish entrepreneurs who have successfully done a startup in the US can help create, pathways for, blaze a trail for others, and, in terms of know-how, in terms of connections, or et cetera.
I mean, that's part of why Treeo VC was formed. But over time, we're going to see that with that intention of creating that safety net, that network, that sense of community, the collaboration opportunities, it takes time to nurture it, but that's the garden that we're trying to grow, right? And the beauty of it is that the Turkish ecosystem, like the venture capital communities and the angel communities there, are really keen on co-investing. So because we're not really competing with them, we're complementing them. We are ending up in a lovely place of collaborating with much of the Turkish ecosystem in the United States as well.
And so, just to follow further on that, do you have any thoughts? Let's say there's a startup in Turkey. They've created a product. They've made an MVP, maybe had a first few customers in Turkey, and they're thinking about going abroad. I mean, what is the next step? Is it really just the co-founders move to the U.S. or, how? I think, it's not easy, but do you have a kind of idea of what, how do the founders dissect the United States? How to guide it, or is it just it's not easy, but you have to figure it out.
Well, it's actually a lot easier than we think, right? The United States is also quite transactional. It's not like Turkey where if somebody doesn't introduce you, you're not going to get through, and a torpil or you need a warm introduction. In the United States, if you have something valuable to say, people will hear you, people will listen, you can gain access. Like, there are structures there are systematic ways you can gain access. So let's just start with the very, very beginning. America's huge. You can't tackle an elephant all at once. You have to eat it bite by bite, right? So you have to be able to segment the United States and really play to an ideal customer profile in a specific geography with limited resources. So you have to be really laser focused. So the first 90 days that you're here is probably a learning sprint to figure out who your ideal customer profile is going to be and which geography you need to be in. So that's the first step. Then the second step is, where do those people convene, hang out? Who are the influencers? Who are the decision makers? Who own the purse strings? And there's literally a professional organization or a conference series or a trade show for everything under the sun in the United States, right? Like, name some abstract thing and I'll find you a conference for it. Pet food for alligators. I will find you a conference for it, right? But there's always going to be places where that community, that business community is convening, whether it's physical or also on an online forum. So you need to start building a presence, a reputation, an activity, a give and take. So this is networking, and this is what we often get wrong about networking. It's not what I can get. It has to be a give and take. It's also what you can give. So that thought leadership, that volunteerism, that community contribution goes both ways. So you have to be there, integrate into those communities, etc. And then, of course, the third probably key ingredient is like existing reference groups. So incubators and accelerators are beautiful for that, because outside of a university and then the university's alumni association, or a company, where are you going to find existing ecosystems that you can integrate into? Incubators and accelerators actually create that environment for you. It's both a learning environment and a community building environment where you find not only customers and mentors, but you also find potential talent, like the talent pool that's there. You know, maybe you're going to be in a community and the company's not going to proceed, but the founder of the other cohort is really talented. He's going to join your company. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, it's really, really dynamic. And who you surround yourself with, it also elevates the conversation and the progress quite a bit.
I meet a lot of startup founders who are asking themselves this question. It's obvious that it's something that you've thought about.
Yeah.
Running towards the end of our time, I like doing a segment, kind of rapid fire questions. You ready for that? All right. Rapid fire questions. Is there any one vertical or industry that you would never invest in?
You know, we thought we would never invest in defense industries. And actually, there are all these dual use scenarios coming up. So we're considering that. We thought we would never invest in cyber because it wasn't necessarily our subject matter expertise, but we found the subject matter expertise in our LP pool. So we're leveraging that, and we just made a recent investment there. Yeah, we thought we would never invest in like life sciences and drug discovery because the pathway for them to commercialize is so different than a normal commercial business, right? Like they have to go through trials and clinical trials and FDA approvals, etc. We did that too. So, you know, everything that we said we would shy away from, even devices, we said we wouldn't invest in devices. And now we're considering that as well. I mean, maybe still cannabis we might not invest in, but, you know, I don't think that, yeah, I think we're being more open-minded than ever before.
What's a characteristic of a founder that you think is underrated?
Self-care and maybe sense of humor. How well they take care of themselves is a great indicator. And sense of humor, I think, is the underrated answer, because if they can't laugh and be like, hold things lightly, then they're never going to get through the tough stuff.
What's a overrated startup advice or something that we hear a lot about startups that you actually don't believe in?
I actually don't believe in pivots the way that people understand them versus how I understand them. Like, some people think a pivot is like, just chuck it all and start over. But that's not what pivot means. Pivot means, just like in basketball, right? You keep one foot stable and you turn your body to another direction. So that means you're either changing your ideal customer profile, your product, or your geography. But it doesn't mean starting completely over. It's really trying to stay where you are and fine tune the fit. I think people trash what they're working on far too fast.
How about most interesting first encounter with a founder?
There are some funny ones, like we knew their parents, then their kids, you know, that kind of a thing, especially because of, you know, where we are in our careers. So we see a lot of that, actually. So some of those are really funny. We've known them as serial entrepreneurs, so we knew them from before, successful exits from before. They've come back. They're here again. It's nice to be able to see this intergenerational play coming into view.
You see children of successful business people in Turkey who are going into entrepreneurship? Is that somewhat of a trend you see at all? Or?
Yes, especially those whose kids have studied abroad. Yes.
It's interesting because that used to not be mainstream at all, right?
Now it's very entrepreneurial. I remember when I first started teaching entrepreneurship and at the MBA level in Turkey, this is when we first launched Endeavor. There would probably be 2 people out of a class of 60 that had entrepreneurship as a career path in mind. And then now when you ask the same question, it's almost 50% are thinking of something entrepreneurial. Wow. So that's a big shift over 20 years, right?
And it is, I mean, people are very entrepreneurial. The thing that's been holding entrepreneurship back in Turkey for a long time has been lack of access to capital, really. A lot of other, I mean, sort of the ecosystem, the environment, but things like lack of access to capital. The interest in terms of, you know, to start a business has always been there. There is a strong entrepreneurial culture.
Absolutely.
I'd like to end on a personal note. A couple of questions there. First is any books or resources that you've enjoyed and found insightful?
It's so funny that you should ask that because lately I find myself recommending an old book to a lot of people, and it was called Crossing the Chasm by Geoffrey Moore. It was literally the Bible of entrepreneurship, but I think the book is probably from like the 1980s maybe or so, but it literally describes the exact thing that I was saying about earlier. Like the rate of innovation and the rate of absorption are not the same right now. There's more innovation happening than there is the ability to absorb. So how do you stay alive long enough for the water to be able to seep through? And what are the strategies for really getting like the early adopters and then crossing the chasm to the main adopters? Because there's a valley of death in between. Just because you have early adopters doesn't mean you're ever going to become the gold standard, right? If the early adopters don't turn into a bigger wave, a bigger segment of customers, you're still not going to make it. So that book is it's actually a really easy read as well. It's and it's an inspiring read. I think it's easy to digest and it really clarifies your thoughts. It's a good book.
It's a classic. It's good always sometimes to go back and read the classics. It's a great suggestion.
To me, it's like the Sun Tzu of entrepreneurship would probably be Crossing the Chasm.
Kind of personal note question I stole from a different podcast. What's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for you?
Probably mentorship. I think that I'm in love with mentors because I had such great mentors in my life. Really, the only way to pay that back is to pay it forward. So I think that that's where my kind of obsession with mentorship comes from. It's transformative when I think about it. I mean, where I went to university, my first career, like big career job at the World Bank, my move to Turkey, all of these came through mentors. My first own startup company, like everything came through different mentors. The confidence and the insight.
One strong mentor you've had, or many mentors at different stages in your...
Many mentors, different stages, different topics. I also kind of manifested it too. Like, I don't know that I would call them mentors at that time, but the relationship I had with that person was a mentorship relationship. I don't think that the person doing the mentorship knew they were a mentor. I didn't know that they were a mentor, but there was a dynamic there that I was cultivating. And then now I'm able to name it, and it's mentorship.
Great story. Thanks for sharing that. This has been a really fun conversation. There's so much to talk about. I'm really excited to see Treeo VC developing a ton of investments you've already done, a ways to go. And, I guess it's still early days for that to happen, but it looks like a second fund might be in the works. So that's exciting too. Every part of the ecosystem adds to the whole. So it's really great to see what you and Didem and Arzu have been doing. And, it was about a year ago when I interviewed Mine. And so now it's great to interview you. And maybe next year, we'll do it again.
Look forward to it. We'd love to talk anytime. And we love being in a position where we can be collaborative. Like that's kind of how we were designed. So whether we invest in a Turkish startup or not, we like to be a resource. Whether we, the LPs or the investors have invested in our fund or not, we like to be a resource. For the different angel and VC groups, we like to co-invest, like incubators, etc. We like to be in that position where we can create this bridge to the U.S. ecosystem where possible. Thank you, Yunus, for supporting us.
Didem.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you.